More than half of doctors are burnt out. Burnout isn't random, and it's not because you're weak or lazy. Hi, I'm Zahra. I'm a medical doctor as well as an entrepreneur. When you look closely at the data around burnout, a clear pattern emerges. It has everything to do with purpose, control, and meaning. So, what is burnout really? It isn't just about being tired. According to the World Health Organization, burnout is defined as depersonalization, emotional exhaustion, and a reduced sense of professional accomplishment. So, surprisingly, this is not rare. A Medscape article that was released back in 2023 found that 53% of doctors are burnt out. This is an insane statistic. They interviewed over 9,000 doctors in 29 different specialties, and 53% reported burnout. That's incredible to me. It's incredible because it's probably true. 1 out of every doctor that you meet is probably going to tell you that they're burnt out. I'm surprised that the statistic isn't higher. I can truly say anecdotally from my own personal experience, my colleagues, friends, they were probably burnt out for most of the year. This same study also found that doctors reported being burnt out for most of the year, if not more than that. They were reporting months of up to 13 months at a time of consistent burnout. It's incredible how much pressure we see, but really it's also important about why does this happen and so how can we prevent it? So the important part is that burnout was not related to working hard, but it was more about whether this serves your purpose. So the same study highlighted 3 really important critical areas that lead to higher rates of burnout. 1 was lack of control. 2, there's a misalignment between value and work. And 3, a moral injury. So with lack of control, you truly just don't have control over your time, your shifts, the type of work that you're doing. When doctors found that there was lack of autonomy in the specialty or in the service that they're working in, they tend to have higher rates of burnout. A lot of it was bureaucratic red tape. The fact that you couldn't do as you're wanting, you were confined by a system, was one of the biggest reasons why doctors were found to be burnt out. 2, a misalignment between value and work. So if you don't find a purpose in what you're doing, if you don't find that there's a reason, a cause, a why to it, there's a higher chance that you're going to burn out much faster. It was very interesting on the same topic or on the same point. I was listening to a podcast recently. It was an episode of On Purpose by Jay Shetty. He actually outlined it really nicely. And so he basically said that burnout tends to happen faster when you lack purpose. You could be working 16 to 18 hours on something that you really care about, you're incredibly passionate about, you understand its value, why you're doing it, and you can do that for 7 days out of the week. A new entrepreneur who's starting a business, someone who's dedicated to a charity, a project, something that has to do with social welfare. You can give all of your time or majority of your time for 7 days out of the week, for 365 days out of the year, and not feel burnt out. On the flip side of that, you can give 8 hours of your day, 5 days a week, to something that you don't particularly care about, you don't understand the why, you don't understand the value or the purpose of it, and you're going to burn out much faster. And so when there's a misalignment, there tends to be big trouble that follows. And the third one was moral injury. And basically what this means is that doctors typically work in a system that is under-resourced, restricted access to resources. And so when you know a patient deserves a certain level of care, but you only have access to a certain amount of it, there's really a discrepancy about what you know the patient deserves versus what you can actually offer. And this happens in systems all around the world, whether you're a developing country or a developed country. We know the constraints that we're limited to. And so that really does cause an additional layer that contributes to burnout. So the moment you've all been waiting for, what are the biggest specialties that burn out? Emergency medicine, internal medicine, obstetrics and gynecology, and primary healthcare. And so you can imagine with emergency medicine, biggest reasons, the shift work, the disruption in your circadian rhythm, being able to have very high clinical acuity, but very little follow through. So typically, if you've ever worked in an emergency center or emergency medicine, you see the patients, but you don't get to close the loop in terms of their continuity of care. They're usually being transferred to another doctor, another specialty. When it comes to internal medicine, massive, overworked, overloaded in terms of patient care. The fact that you feel like you need to do everything all the time, but you have little control over what you're doing or the time that you can do it in. So doctors who work in internal medicine will often report that they have too little time and too much to do. It contributes to massive stress and being overworked. They also have tremendous amounts of admin that they always have to be on top of. Obstetrics and gynecology, I can attest to this one personally. It's an amazing discipline because you get to see the joy and happiness on a new mother's face. But in a 26-hour shift, you can have that amazing moment and then have to 2 hours later be managing a patient who's having a postpartum hemorrhage, who is on the brink of death. And so that polarizing nature of an obstetrics call really makes it very emotionally intense because you don't know what you're going to get. And so an amazing specialty, I think you really do need to find the value in it if you decide to go into it. And like I said, from my own personal experience, I definitely know. I had burnout through it. I have colleagues and friends who suffer the same, and through all these disciplines. So surprisingly, another one, primary healthcare. Primary healthcare, because it's time burdened, you tend to see patients who have chronic illnesses, and often you might not be able to overcome their barriers or obstacles, and you are still having to maintain their level of care. So to get this clear, it's not because these doctors are weaker or lazier or are incapable. In fact, it's probably the exact opposite. The disciplines that tend to burn out much faster, it's because they require a higher level of clinical acuity. It's emotionally intensive. It's that they're time pressured, there's increased legal risk, and because there's lower perceived control, just like with internal medicine. And so the question you're probably asking is that, well, we're a little bit doomed, Zahra, because half of us are burnt out all the time and we love the work that we're doing, but are our jobs trying to sabotage us? And so the answer is no. Of course, medicine is not trying to sabotage us, but what they found is that it's important to actually have a strong sense of purpose outside of your job. And so if you're only getting value or validation from one role in one space, one area of your life, you're going to tend to burn out faster. So what was really important to know is that doctors who had a strong sense of purpose outside of work tended to have lower burnout rates. And so whether this was purpose from research, teaching, entrepreneurship, being dedicated to family, fitness, there just needed to be something else that you gave value and purpose to outside of your clinical space, you will tend to have lower rates of burnout. And all this basically means is that purpose just acts as a buffer. If your role is only defined by one space, one discipline, one area, the likelihood is that you will burn out faster. And so it's just important about finding what is that other area that you're really passionate about, what is that other area that gives you so much joy and purpose, and make sure you give adequate amounts of time to that so that your only validation and value doesn't come from one space that you know half of us are likely to burn out. If you enjoyed this video and you'd like to see more, you can check my latest video out here, and you can always subscribe to my channel.